Hey, good evening. It's so great to see all of you here tonight. I really don't need a script tonight to welcome all of you, but I'm going to use one, and then I'll explain why. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's School Safety Forum. My name is Dana Addis, and I am delighted to be your host for this important event. As educators, administrators, parents, and students, we all share a common goal: to create a safe and secure learning environment for everyone in our school community. With recent incidents of violence and other safety concerns across our nation, it is more critical than ever that we come together to address these issues and ensure that our schools remain safe havens for learning and growth. This forum is an opportunity for us to engage in productive dialogue about school safety, to share our concerns and ideas, and to work together to identify solutions that will improve the safety of our schools. We will be hearing from a range of experts, including school safety professionals, mental health specialists, and community leaders who will provide insights and practical advice on how we can make our schools safer. We know that school safety is a complex issue and there are no easy solutions. However, by working together and pooling our collective knowledge and expertise, we can make progress towards creating safer schools for everyone. I would like to thank all of our speakers and attendees for being here today, and I look forward to a productive and informative discussion. Thank you. I'm telling you that I'm reading this because yesterday afternoon in ChatGPT, I typed, "prepare an opening speech for a school safety forum," and it wrote every single one of those words. So that's a little glimpse into our future and something that we're going to have to deal with that is a part of safety in our schools for our kids and for all of us. Here's the real introduction. My name's Dana. I am so proud to be up here as the superintendent of Hudson City Schools. So proud to be with all these people. And as I shared at the board meeting last night, I've been in a variety of districts. Every single one of them cares about kids. Every single one of them talks about safety in their schools and equipping their school communities with knowledge. This district has 60 volunteers that once a month gets together and focuses on the safety of our school district. It is yet another amazing point of Hudson City Schools. So I want to thank all of those people. This is the pinnacle of our preparation, is to come here tonight to speak to our community and to let you know what we've been working on, and we're excited to get started on that. Here's a little bit about the agenda. We're going to talk about some mental health supports and resources. We're going to talk a little bit about lockdown procedures and then coordinated response and communication from the professionals who are here tonight. And we're going to get started with Kelly Kemp, who's our Director of Pupil Services. Kelly, thank you for being here.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming tonight. As Mr. Addis mentioned, my name's Kelly Kemp. I'm the Director of Pupil Services for the district, and I'm going to start off by sharing some of the resources that we have in place across the district to support our students' mental health, overall mental health. We have what we call a comprehensive student services team comprised of our 14 school counselors, which is 1 at McDowell for pre-K, 1 at Ellsworth Hill for 1st and 2nd grade, 3 at Eastwoods, 3 at the middle school, and 6 at the high school. We have our 5 school psychologists, which allows for 1 in every building, 3 clinical counselors. We have 1 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and 1 that supports the 4 elementary buildings. We have our district social worker, our district nurse, and our building and district administrators. In addition to these staff members, we have other important resources, including staff from Minority Behavioral Health Group, and currently we have 2 students who are in the district across two staff members who are in the district across 3 days per week. We have a behavior specialist in the district 2 days a week, and all of our related service staff, our occupational therapists and our speech and language therapists who support social skills and also behavior and self-regulation skills with our students. So this graph shows that several of our staff overlap and coordinate efforts to help support students' success and their well-being or intervene on behalf of a student. We have several different levels of skills and expertise available to collaborate with our staff to support our students' mental health needs, and all 4 of these individuals could be involved in supporting a student, if not more. Our mental health supports are part of a tiered level system of support. Tier 1 supports are programs and services that are available to all of our students. Tier 2 supports are more targeted for students with increased needs who may require some additional assistance or intervention at some point. And Tier 3 supports provide more targeted intervention for students that have more significant mental health needs or who may be in crisis. Some examples of our Tier 1 supports that are ongoing programs or services available to all students include things like classroom lessons by the school counselor, the Leader in Me program, teaching the 7 habits to our students and then incorporating them into different situations that students experience. Zones of regulation, which helps us to identify our feelings, what zone we might be in, and then some strategies or tools to help us manage our feelings or emotions or reactions. We have social thinking and just many other building wellness initiatives, such as even wellness announcements or even Wellness Week at the high school. So it looks very different across different buildings, but these Tier 1 supports are available for all students. Some examples of Tier 2 supports are having maybe small group lessons to focus on self-regulation skills or social skills for just a group of students. Consulting with a behavior specialist or our board-certified behavior analyst for some possible strategies for behavior to try in the classroom. Maybe connecting with the clinical counselor about strategies to support mental health or a student experiencing a traumatic event, or connecting the family with a student with our district social worker so they could access community resources. Those are all ways that we might provide more targeted intervention for students. And then finally, our Tier 3 supports are more specific for students that are have really significant needs, maybe putting in an individual behavior plan for a student, setting them up with clinical counseling, something that is really specific. And if you noticed in the previous slide, the pyramid, that's a smaller number of students. So all students have access to everything, and then it just narrows as our group of students flee the pool gets smaller as the triangle moves up. We're really fortunate to have so many district resources to support the mental health needs of our students, and we assess that level of an amount of support every year, and then we make adjustments as needed. So over the past few years, we've increased the mental health supports in a few areas that are available for our students in order to meet increasing needs. And right now, I would like to highlight 2 of the staff resources that were presented earlier. And we have our school counselor and a clinical counselor, and they both play a really significant role in supporting our students. We're often asked what's the difference between the 2 of them, and hopefully they'll be able to share a quick overview of the different supports that they offer. So I'd like to introduce Kristen Gilliland, school counselor.
Hi, I'm Kristen Gilliland. I'm one of the elementary school counselors for the district. This year I'm serving students at Eastwoods Intermediate School. And I want to share a little bit about what we do in the school and how we work with teachers and our administrators to support students. The first and foremost thing is we prioritize student relationships. That is near and dear to all of our hearts. We really focus on this in terms of our visibility, greeting students at the door, calling them by name, being in the lunchroom, being in the hallways, helping students to understand that we're another helper and we're here to support them and that we care about them and we want to make connections with them. Our focus also involves academic, social, emotional, college, and career readiness. And we do this by getting into the classrooms, teaching classroom lessons, facilitating small groups, through individual check-ins and student meetings. Oftentimes, our space becomes a space for students who need a few minutes for calming or refocusing during times of high emotion. All of the school counselors in the district are part of the response to intervention teams in the buildings or the student assistant teams. So we work with teachers and our administrators and parents to not only come up with academic interventions for students, but also social emotional supports for students. And we are also involved in district and school-wide initiatives. So for example, many of us serve on different committees throughout the district, including safety and wellness, the ROCKS program, which is a nationally recognized program for girls leadership. That's at the elementary, middle school, and high school level. Many of us are involved in other committees like the Cultural Proficiency Committee, State of Mind Hudson. So we are just another member of the building team, of the building community, to provide support and resources for our students, for parents, and also staff. We're an integral part of the See Something, Say Something support. At the elementary level, that looks like teaching the kids what that means and how you can express your concerns for yourself or a friend. And then many times we're also involved in supporting someone who is concerned about a friend or a student who is in crisis. I wanted to share just a few of our classroom lesson and group topics, especially at the elementary level. We really have a proactive, preventative focus. We're so fortunate to have the district support and our administrative support so that we can get into the classrooms and teach and facilitate lots of groups. So our lesson topics are based on the American School Counseling Association standards, the Ohio Social Emotional Learning Standards, and also we take a look at our student voices, and we look at the Panorama survey data, and we design a lot of our instruction and our groups around that as well. So as Kelly mentioned, the 7 habits, the zones of regulation, social thinking, those are all ideas and themes that are embedded in all of our lessons and groups. We teach advocacy skills for self and others. We teach understanding different feelings and the body and brain responses. We teach coping skills, self-regulation tools and strategies. We do a lot of preventative work about healthy friendships, conflict resolution skills, resiliency, perspective taking, growth mindset, organizational and study skills, and solution-focused strategies. So I think it's so important to listen to our student voices. This year I'm serving 3rd grade students. So I've been so fortunate. I've been in every classroom. I think we're on our 15th lesson. And I always ask the kids at the end of the lesson, you know, what stuck with you? What message can you carry forward? And so these are some of our 3rd grade student voices. When we read Grumpy Monkey, it helped me understand that all my feelings are okay, and then not expected to feel calm or happy all the time. Yes, that came from an 8-year-old. Things I enjoy doing, like shooting hoops and drawing, are also good coping strategies. I can use coping skills to get through hard, sad, or difficult times. That was from our lesson about resiliency. When something doesn't feel right, I need to let a trusted adult know. So thank you for allowing me to share some time with you. And thank you for your interest in safety and wellness. I'd like to introduce Stephanie Collins, one of our clinical counselors from the district.
It's blinding. My goodness. Hi, I'm Stephanie Collins. I'm one of the 3 clinical counselors here in Hudson. And just talk a little bit about what our roles are here in the district. So really our main role is to provide consultation, education, and advocacy both to students and staff on any mental health related topic. We are also a part of the student assistance team in every building and again provide consultation and suggest interventions for students that are identified, create and implement various mental health support and interventions in all 3 tiers. We assist with crises, referrals for outside services, provide counseling services to students. How we access that service, it looks a little bit different depending on the building, but anytime there is a student that a staff member is noticing might be struggling with some mental health issues, there's a referral process that we have in place to make sure that we are accessing those kids and getting them the support that they need. That process is very intentional because it's a limited resource, so we need to make sure that we're managing that wisely and effectively. Where we do modify that a little bit is if there's any kind of traumatic event that happens in a student's life in the community, we typically become involved in that, offering support and assistance right away. And again, working to support the student, the family, and the staff to plan for what the student might need at school, both in the short term and in the long term. A big part of what we do here in Hudson as well is when a student is at risk for self-harm or suicide. We're really excited this year. We have really solidified our plan in how all our school counselors and clinical counselors are trained on using the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale. It's a really simple form that we use to identify how much risk is involved there, and we have a very detailed process of how we go through that and identify what that student needs, what we communicate to the families, and how to keep that student safe and and make sure they get the supports that they need. We have tip sheets for parents, for teachers, and for counselors. We work on return to school plans. So whatever is going on with those students, we make sure that we're able to support them when they come back if they have to be out for any kind of treatment needs. And now I'm going to introduce Jamie.
Good evening, everyone. Jamie Gans. I'm one of the assistant principals at Hudson Middle School. I'm gonna raise it. I'll just squat. I have an opportunity to serve our 7th and 8th grade students. And even though I am a middle school representative, please know that these procedures and expectations and processes when a report of bullying is given to the school are consistent across the district. But I thought, before we get going, you could define bullying many different ways, and obviously we can go back to our board policy 5517. I really don't want to squat the whole time. I'm sorry. There we go. And I want to just read this. This will be the one thing I want to read verbatim, just because I think it is important to establish that clear understanding, again, as we go through those procedures, processes, and expectations. So, according to our board policy 5517, any intentional written, verbal, electronic, or physical act that a student or group of students exhibit towards another particular student more than once, and the behavior both causes mental or physical harm to the other student and is sufficiently severe, persistent, or pervasive that it creates an intimidating, threatening, or abusive educational environment for the other students. So again, now that we've established at least a definition of what bullying is, once that is reported to the school, I want to kind of take you through those procedures and expectations. So the first thing is we're going to receive this formal statement, most likely from the complainant and or victims that are included. Once we gather that statement, our goal is to achieve as much specific information as we can. So we need time, location, date, potential witnesses, potential offenders, especially if it's happened more than once. We need all that information. Once we get that, as you see in that second bullet, now we have a good foundation to conduct an investigation. Now we call it an investigation, but really it's interviewing with students and having conversations with staff, trying to gain clarity about what is going on, especially with these allegations. What can we corroborate? Also, from an evidence collection, we have so much with regard to surveillance cameras in schools, on the bus. Can we get any video that can help bring some clarity? Is there some screenshots? Is there drawings or anything that we can help to substantiate some of those claims that are in that report? Now, again, it is important that, especially if you are a parent of a potential offender that has been identified in a report, we want to make sure that they have that informal hearing with that building administration and that they have that due process. So that is very important. So once we've gathered all this evidence, but we are trying to do a thorough investigation so that when we're making this determination, is this bullying, is this harassment, is this intimidation, or is it inappropriate behavior, we love and care for our students. So we want this investigation to be thorough. We want it to be thoughtful so that when we do make that determination, it is sound on evidence. And regardless of that determination, please know our processes are the same and our intention is the same. And no action or behavior that's reported is ignored. So whether something is deemed bullying or inappropriate behavior, our focus is the same, and it's on your child or those children involved. But again, no action or behavior that has been reported is ever ignored. At this point, when we're conducting that investigation as a family, you should expect a call home from the school. We're going to let you know that either your child was identified in a report either as an offender or a victim or even as a witness, so that communication, just to make sure that you are informed. The next step really is focusing on that postvention phase, and we've heard our incredible resources from a counseling standpoint, and we could all think about what a traditional disciplinary approach would be for a potential allegation of bullying or harassment or intimidation or even inappropriate behavior. However, we'd like to complement that with some type of restorative piece. So you might hear, mediation, conferencing with students, utilizing our resources. Stay-away contracts are something that we might institute within a building to help ensure both students or students' safety as we go through it. But again, our disciplinary approach is progressive, but complementing that with a restorative piece is always nice. And again, we just have incredible resources, so we'd be remiss if we didn't include those within that postvention phase. If you are a family member or parent, guardian of someone, particularly who was a complainant, who provided us that information, the victim, of course, and the offender, you're going to receive a phone call from the school as well, notifying you that the investigation is complete, here are our findings, and this is how we're going to move forward to best support those students that are involved. Now again, student confidentiality is so important, so we're not sharing information with one family to another. And it's important that we adhere to that and the privacy rights of our students. So really when we say we're providing those findings or those next steps to support those students, it's really just what pertains to you and your child. All right, we value your voice and the voice of our students. So we want to make sure that you have a plethora of opportunities to share effective ways when concerns do come up. And that first one, so if you're a parent or guardian of a 6th grader all the way up to 12th grade on their school-issued iPad, they have an app that they have access to, and once they access it and complete it, it provides them a Google form where they can do an incident report. And that populates right to the school, and we have that at our doorstep, and we're able to intervene and provide support as needed. Safe Schools Helpline, that's not only for our school community, but for our community at large, and that's been incredibly helpful on several occasions where, again, we're getting that heads up, we're able to intervene, kind of go through our procedures, processes at the building level and provide supports as necessary based on the unique situation. And then, most importantly, we've talked about relationships. Those trusted adults in the building, when those students have concerns, we see something, say something, they know those trusted adults. We're so proud of them when they do that. And once they do, they report that to us as administrators. The administrators are intentional about building those relationships as well, so hopefully they also feel comfortable coming to the office. And I'll be honest with you, email's just an effective tool for our kids. They feel comfortable just giving me, saying, "Hey, Jamie," which I love. Something's going on. I don't feel comfortable. Can you look into this? And those are just proud moments, I know, for us at the building level when students feel that comfortable. So I think it's a testament to our relationships with our kids. All right, so hopefully, I know bullying's a tough one and a heavy one, but hopefully we are able to take a few minutes just to provide some clarity with when a school does receive it. Here's our procedures, here's our processes, and here's what to expect as a parent or guardian. All right, now I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Sedlak to talk about threat assessment.
I'm going to have to move this down. Good evening. Michael Sedlak, unit principal at Hudson High School. Threat assessments, like Jamie was talking about, bullying can be reported a number of different ways, but at the end of the day, the goal is to make sure our schools are safe in schools, playgrounds, buses, anything that constitutes a Hudson City Schools area. So we have these in place. We have a threat assessment and a team in place. I'm going to go through those individually. This is a lot of verbiage. I'm not going to read it out loud. You guys could check that out. So we do have a threat assessment team, and that consists of building administrators, the school counselor, clinical counselors, school psychologists, teachers involved with the student, any HCSD staff that they have a relationship with. Maybe they have connections elsewhere. We talk a lot about relationships in Hudson. But that's all part of a team. So if we get a Safe School helpline threat, report of a threat, someone hears something in the classroom, someone goes up to Jamie, one of us, and says, hey, I feel like something's going on, we start investigating, again, similar to bullying. So we'll pull some or all of the team together, and we start that process. We're gathering information, we're gathering data, we're talking to the reporter. Even if it's a Safe School helpline, yes, those can be done anonymously, but if we need more information, we can write back to Safe Schools helpline and ask for additional information. They can contact the people or person that made the report and get us more information if we need it. Or we've even told them, have them come talk to the unit principal tomorrow or whenever it is. We do get those on the weekends and the evenings. We've called home at times just to say, hey, I know it's Saturday night. We just got this Safe School helpline. We want to make sure that your child's okay. And again, we'd rather make that awkward call on a late Saturday evening or early Sunday morning than have something happen over the weekend. So we start talking to the reporter, the victims, the alleged offenders, and we're gathering feedback all at the same time. Parents are also informed of this, especially the alleged offender will talk with the parents and let them know, hey, there was some sort of a report out there, some sort of a threat. We need more information from you. We want you to know that we're doing this investigation. Threat assessment have been in place in Hudson since 2019. It was put in place with input from threat assessment experts, our SROs, Hudson school staff, and we're trained every 3 years with a state-approved training program. We were just retrained a few weeks ago, and we said, hey, this would be a great idea to kind of refresh our staff and our families. So our threat assessment really outlines our process. At that point, we decide, is it a transient threat or a substantiated threat? Transient threat is where there's no sustained intent to harm. So it's maybe an off-the-cuff comment. There's no immediate danger to any students or staff, versus a substantiated threat where there is a serious intent to harm someone. So we make that determination with all the information, and then from there we decide where we go with the threat assessment intervention. At the end, though, we want to support our students. So we want to support the victim, we want to support the offender, whether it's mental health, physical, anything we need to do. And then just because we're done with the threat assessment, we're not done. We follow up with it. It could be anything from, quick check-ins, even if it's a transient threat, just quick check-ins with the student, to making sure they have outside counseling, or we're talking to their outside counselors, meeting with their clinical counselors, our school counselors. Again, we're all here to support our students and to make sure that they come home safely every night. So that's threat assessment. I'm going to turn it over to my good friend, Jen Filomena.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening. I'm Jen Filomena, the building principal at Ellsworth Hill, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what our safety drills look like at the elementary level, knowing that every building doesn't do everything exactly the same, but these are the consistencies across our 3 elementary buildings. So as Kristen had talked about, we talk a lot about the 7 habits of happy kids, and at the beginning of each school year, every building principal and assistant principals, if there are those in the building, along with usually the school counselor, go and visit with classes or a couple classes at a time to review the safety procedures for the building. And as you know, our kids matriculate every couple of years. It used to be more often than that. And so those procedures might look a little bit different, or the space might look a little bit different. So getting kids acclimated to their building space each fall. So in the primary level, we start out with the 2 habits that relate mostly to being safe, and that's habit 1, which is be proactive, have a plan. So if you're going to be safe, you have to have a plan and know what to do. And then habit 7 is sharpen the saw, and that's taking care of ourselves and also taking care of others around us.
We also talk about what we call the uh-oh feeling in the primary grades, and that is the primary version of see something, say something. So we all know that our bodies react when we're not feeling like something's quite right. And so we call that feeling in your belly, or your hands might get sweaty, you might get a headache, or you might feel a little tingly. We're putting it in kid language because we are talking to preschoolers, kindergartners, first and second graders about these feelings. And what do you do about it? Well, if I'm feeling that way, I need to tell a trusted adult about that. And then at the intermediate school, which I also used to work at, that kind of graduates to see something, say something. And that carries them through all the way through adulthood, to be honest, because we encourage our adults and parents to see something and say something as well. At all the buildings, we have 3 main types of drills, and we talk about, at Ellsworth and all the buildings, well, what's the same about all those drills? Well, I need to be quiet. I need to follow directions. We're going to take out the foam C, which is, we keep our door handles locked on all of our classrooms all of the time, and it's a little, if you think about having a toddler and they love to play with doors and sometimes their fingers go right where the door pinches them, it's literally a foam piece that you put on the door. That way we can pull that really quickly should we need to, but then the door is still left open but locked for bathroom visits, things like that. So we pull that closed and we close that door all the way, no matter the kind of drill, doesn't matter, fire, tornado, or a lockdown drill. And then at the elementary level, we're gonna follow and stay with an adult at all times. So what's different about those? Well, a fire drill, we go outside, and the kids are usually like, well, yeah, Mrs. Philomena, of course we would go outside. And whereas a tornado drill, obviously, we would stay inside. And we talk about getting into our tornado safe place and getting into tornado position, which we all know as like the turtle back and things like that. And then finally with the lockdown drill, there is no location because we have to make the best decision at the time given the information we know. At the primary level, we tend to focus on what is called at the intermediate and secondary levels a security lockdown, and that's the spread out, stay quiet, and put the barricade and stay locked in your room. It's kind of stay put. We don't practice as much at the primary level what's called an instructional lockdown, which would be more like a student fell in the hallway and broke their leg. And so keep teaching, but teachers, we want to keep everybody just out of the halls. If we had something like that, we would use plain language on the PA so that our staff knew and our kids knew without causing undue alarm. And then for the adults, it's make the best decision. So either I'm gonna pull out that foam C and put the barricade in place and we're gonna lock down within the classroom, or if for some reason we need to leave, then we as adults have that decision-making power. And we'll use as much plain language as we can in the moment and get that to our staff in any way we can. So that's a little bit about what it looks like at the elementary level. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike Miller, who is going to share with you more about what these same practices look like with the older kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Mike Miller, principal at the high school. So I'm going to talk really a lot about what she just talked about. So at the high school, this is the same thing. We are going to stay quiet during any drill. We're going to listen and follow directions, and we're going to really trust our training. It's all the stuff that they've been taught at the primary levels, just like whether it's reading and writing and all that stuff. They're really setting the foundation for what we're going to be doing at the high school. Really, not even necessarily the high school, but 6 through 12 middle school and high school. So those are all important foundational pieces. What we do try to do as students get older is give them a little more leeway in what they can do and make some decisions. But to Jen's point, fire is pretty simple. We go outside. However, when we're doing that, we do want to stay quiet. We want to follow instructions from the staff member and make sure we're getting to our location. And then we want to make sure everybody's out of the building and then we're taking accurate attendance when we get outside. because if we actually did have a fire, we would need to take attendance and then ultimately have to go somewhere else to a different location. We have those locations throughout our district that the staff and the students know about if we ever had to evacuate and relocate to a different spot. Same thing with tornado. We want to make sure that we're practicing that frequently. Specifically, as we come up here into the spring, we're going to have a state-wide tornado drill. We're going to do that. The kids know about that. Anytime it's during tornado season, we're going to practice those drills. And to go back a little bit to fire, now that we've remodeled all our schools or the schools are new, with the fire suppression systems, we need to do 6 fire drills per year. So every building's doing 6 at some point throughout the 9 months that we're in school. We no longer have to do 9 at the old middle school because they didn't have they didn't have the new fire suppression systems. We had to do 1 monthly. So with fire, we're doing 6. Tornado, it's usually 3 times a year. The other thing I would mention, both with fire, tornado, and I'm going to get to lockdown in a second, is we practice those in the first 10 days of school, specifically 6 to 12. So we're having a fire drill, we're having a tornado drill, and we're talking about that both in large group sessions and small group sessions right at the beginning of the year, because as students are coming in, we can't take for granted they know what to do. We need to practice those right away and get those foundational skills set, because safety is going to be the number 1 priority for all of our buildings, for all our students. So those are some of the first things they're going to do when they get into our building at the beginning of the school year. As far as the lockdown drills, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. She mentioned instructional and security. We do practice these at the high school and middle school, and they are definitely different. So I'm going to talk about instructional lockdown first. An instructional lockdown, you're going to hear an announcement over the PA. She mentioned that we're going to use plain language. We are going to, tell what's happening so staff and students know what's going on. During instructional lockdown, doors are going to shut and they're going to be locked. We don't have the foam C here at the high school or at the middle school. We have magnets that go in between the lock and the door jamb. That way, when kids are coming and going, they can do that. And if there's an emergency situation, you can put that magnet down. And the door is automatically locked and secure, so you don't have to worry about a key. So we have those in all our doors here at the high school. In the classroom during instructional lockdown, the education will continue. Teachers are going to teach, students are going to learn. The only thing that's different is the door is shut and there'll be no student traffic in the hallway. If a student were to need to use the restroom or leave the classroom for any reason, we would have adult supervision in the hallway. At that time, during instructional lockdown, we're going to be using our school counselors, all our resources that we have to help out and move kids from one place to the next if they need to go. But there would be no hallway traffic that is not unaccompanied by an adult. And this is very situational. So some of the reasons we might do this, she mentioned a medical emergency in the building. A student may have a seizure in the hallway. We don't want 1,500 kids spilling out in the hallway when the bell rings. If we have a medical emergency going on, we have EMS here and we're serving a student that is having a medical issue. So we do that at times. Maybe there's something going on outside of the building we're not 100% sure on. We're communicating with our safety forces. Our SROs in the back are always keeping us informed on what's going on. So we're going to make a decision at that point if it's outside the building. Hey, we're going to go in instructional lockdown. We're going to be, make sure that everything's okay. We're going to keep kids in the building. Specifically at the high school, we have a lot of kids coming and going with flex passes and things of that nature. So we want to try to eliminate that hallway traffic or that traffic going to and from the building if something's going on. And at that time, we can go into a security lockdown at any time. One of the things we implemented this year, specifically for a security lockdown I'm going to get into here, is we have strobe lights on the outside of our building. And since we have so many kids coming and going on, flex passes, specifically juniors and seniors, and even staff coming and going, parents coming and going from the building, if there is a flashing light on the outside of our building, any of our entrances, that means we are in a security lockdown, and you should not approach the building and leave the building or leave the premises because something's going on inside of the building. There's some kind of security issue. But once again, for a security lockdown, we're going to make an announcement over the PA. We're going to use plain language. And this is where all the training that starts at the elementary level that carries up to the middle school and high school really comes into play. We want students and staff to make the best decision possible for themselves with the information they have. We could what if a lot of things. You could throw 1,000 different scenarios at us on what could happen, but we have to use our training and make that best decision. That best decision might mean, hey, I'm going to barricade the door. You can see the barricade up here. It's a device that we do have that the door is shut. There's a pin that goes down. We have our staff practice this. We let our students practice it. specifically at the beginning of the year, and we want to be able to barricade our doors if necessary within about 8 seconds. So if something, if something's going down, we would be able to shut that, pull the magnet up, doors locked, barricades on, put the pin down, and in about 8 seconds that door's secure. We're only doing that in an imminent threat on school grounds. We know something's going on for a variety of different reasons. We're going security lockdown, and at that point, like I said, they're going to barricade and lock themselves in the room, or depending on the information they have over the PA and that information, they are going to possibly evacuate and get off school grounds. So they need to make that decision for themselves. The other thing we do is very situational. We have a space like this. So as you can imagine, let's say it's Explorer period, there might be 200 students here in this media center. If something happens, they've got to make a decision. There's exits on all sides here. Our policy here would be to leave this large room and go into the rooms adjacent to the media center and either lock down in there or leave that area. So we practice with our students in areas like this, areas like the Commons. What happens if I'm in the bathroom and I hear the PA go off and we're in a security lockdown? We give them options on what they could do. So that, I think, is the main difference between the elementary and the high school and middle school level. We're really giving students options and the ability to make decisions to keep them as safe as possible. Even if they're in an area, there's an empty room, they know they can go in and barricade that door if that's what they think is going to be best for them. And the students know how to use those barricades, and we actually encourage it in a safety situation. Like I said, how we practice, I already went over this. Fire, we do 6 per year. Tornado, we do monthly during tornado season. All these drills are practiced multiple times in the first 10 days of the school, and we try to explain this all in large group settings and small group settings, so that information is getting them in multiple ways. In the lockdowns, finally, we do practice those, and we practice those quarterly. At one time, we were doing those monthly. When COVID hit, we didn't want to practice getting all these students, very close together, so we went to quarterly and more talking through it as much as anything else. And I think that's been good. That is something our advisory committee is looking at. Do we want to go back to monthly, or do we want to go back to quarterly? Right now, we are at quarterly, and it's going pretty well. So with that is how we operate both at the middle school and the high school for our lockdown procedures. With that, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize some guys in the back of the room, our SROs. I am thankful every day that they are with us. Matt Price, Joe Giacomazza, they both work at the high school and the middle school. I've known them both well. I've worked at both the middle school and the high school, and I am so thankful that they're with us every day and supporting us through everything that we're going through. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Perry Tabek.
I'd like to start off by saying that I wish Dana would have shared the chat GPT information. Might have saved me a little bit of time. I don't know how it would have worked, but I would have tried. Perry Tabak, Chief of Hudson Police Department. I want to thank everybody for being here. I also want to thank the schools and everybody for inviting me. I think this is going to be a great opportunity for me to share some of the stuff that the Hudson Police Department is doing as it relates to specifically to school safety. I'm going to cover a couple different points. First thing I want to do is go over our SRO program as it stands today. The Hudson Police Department trains and certifies its SROs following the Ohio Resource Officers Association guidelines. This includes the triad concept, which I think is a real important concept, which I'll talk a little bit more on in a minute. Our officers aren't just security guards. They assume several important roles, including but not limited to law enforcement officer, informal counselor, and educator. They also play an important role as liaisons between the police department, both myself and the administration of the school, and day-to-day staff issues with our patrol division and the staff at the schools. This is important day-to-day, and when critical incidents happen, it's even more important to have those communication lines open and available, so they do a great job with that as well. The Hudson Police Department currently has 2 officers assigned as school resource officers. Sorry, can everyone hear me? The Hudson Police Department currently has 2 officers assigned as school resource officers. The 2 officers are full-time police officers that are employed by the Hudson Police Department that are assigned to the positions as SROs. There's a few things that I put in here that I think are important and deserve a little explanation. The model that we use may not be the same model that you see at other schools, and this isn't to disparage any other models. It's what other people, what works for them based on their resources and what they think is important. For us, I think it's important having Hudson police officers that are full-time officers with the agency spending as much time as possible in the schools. We have the same officers year to year. Some agencies and districts will use officers on, we call it extra jobs or special assignments, where you may have a different officer day to day, week to week, filling in those roles. I think it's important that we have the same two officers that are developing relationships with school staff and with students and are there and available on a daily basis. So I think that's one of the things that really separates Hudson from some of the other agencies. And again, it's what works for us. We're fortunate that we have the resources to provide the two SROs, and I think they do a great job for us, and it's an important part of our relationship with the schools. The next thing I want to talk about can be uncomfortable, but I think it's an important conversation, and I want to talk about active shooter incidents. First thing I want to do is actually define what an active shooter is as far as what I'm going to talk about. Sometimes they call it an active shooter, active threat, mass murderer, active killer. There's many titles, but there's only one definition that really encompasses all of these. It's a situation where one or more people are in the process of causing death or injury or posing an immediate danger thereof. Lately, you're seeing trends where they're not calling it an active shooter, they're calling it an active threat or active killing, and that's to encompass some of the other things that we see outside of firearms being used in these events. So anytime I refer to it, if you hear threat, active killer, active shooter, we're talking about the definition that I just gave you. This was out of the Washington Post a few years back, and it's a summary of the incidents. It's a quote. "The reality of the situation is it's a sad reality, but it's reality. There are no sanctuaries anymore. We've seen this happen in schools, in malls, playgrounds, parks, churches. No place is safe anymore." And again, this is the way some people feel when they see all these incidents on TV and on the news. I added in, we must be prepared for this type of crisis. Prevention's a big key, and again, going back to the SROs, they're heavily involved with the schools on a daily basis. They're involved in threat assessments. They get to know these kids, they get to know the staff, and they're involved, and I think that's a key component in prevention. However, we have to be prepared for these types of events. What procedures does HPD use, right? I can only speak for Hudson Police Department. We coordinate and share information, and we train with other agencies, but this is what we're doing. It's difficult to establish and apply one specific procedure to an active shooter or active threat type of event. These situations are unpredictable, fluid, and evolve quickly. Because of this, we plan for and train in the use of different techniques that can be used in order to minimize the loss of life in these events. And really, everything we do is geared around that last sentence, to minimize loss of life. That's our goal. So what are we doing? What's Hudson Police Department doing to ensure preparedness? I'm going to touch base on these topics, and then I'll go into detail a little bit as what they are. We have SROs assigned to the schools in a role of prevention, deterrence, and response. We're applying non-traditional response techniques, which include but not limited to single officer response, CFO, which is critical injury first aid, RTF, which is Rescue Task Force, and then we're also building partnerships with the schools, other law enforcement agencies, which include local, state, and federal, and community members. I want to give everybody a little bit of history as far as the police response and how it's changed and how it led to where we're at in Hudson and what we train for and what we require and ask our staff to do. For 30 plus years in my career, the standard response, police response, and this was nationally, to a critical incident like an active shooter, active threat, would be for patrol officers to respond, and they would contain the unit. They would set up a perimeter. They wouldn't let it expand or go anywhere else, and they would wait for SWAT to respond, SWAT or a special response team. In 1999, there was a shift from that due to public outcry and police departments realizing that we had to do better. 1999 Columbine, if everybody remembers, familiar, one of the biggest critiques was that the police departments didn't go in sooner, right? They did what they'd been trained to do for 30 years, was to set up a perimeter and call and wait for SWAT teams that have special equipment and gear and tactics to go into that incident. Around 1999, you saw a shift, and departments started training and going to a quad or diamond or a 4-officer formation. And what that was where they wouldn't wait for SWAT. You might have one officer get on scene, and then he'd wait. 2 more would get there. And then when the 4th officer arrived on scene, they would go in, and they would try and handle the incident. As more incidents occurred, we realized that time was our enemy. It was the biggest enemy that we could face, was that ticking time clock. So what we switched to was, and this is what the Hudson Police Department trains for and gears our officers up for, is a single officer response. That means if you're on scene, you're going in. Now, that being said, that's obviously not the safest for the police officers. They know this. We also provide them with support, training, equipment to try and keep them as safe as possible. But that's what we train to do, and that's what our response, and that's what's expected from our officers. That's our response as of today. Now, obviously, as more officers get on scene, more are going to pour into the incident to assist. But we do what's called single officer response. I mentioned CFA, or critical injury first aid, and IFACs, which are individual first aid kits. All Hudson PD officers undergo basic first aid, CPR, AED training, as well as CFA. CFA enables officers to use medical skills necessary to save his or her life or the life of another in a high-threat environment before arrival of emergency medical services. This includes tourniquet, hemorrhage control, and sealing chest wounds. Every single HPD officer receives this training and carries tourniquets and IFACs with them on a daily basis. You may see the officers, when they're in uniform, they will have a tourniquet on them, and they also carry IFACs with them in their cruisers out on the road. Rescue Task Force, or RTF, is a concept designed to get life-saving medical treatment to victims in active shooter events much sooner than traditional deployment methods. It involves placing EMS providers in forward positions protected by law enforcement to provide emergency medical intervention immediately while efforts to secure the scene continue. So, we go back, we talked about the police response and what traditional responses were for police. Well, same thing with fire, EMS. We've had to evolve, right? And as more of these incidents occur, we have data and statistics, and again, time is not on our side. So the fire departments are now working with the police departments, and I can tell you, Hudson Fire and EMS, when we approached them with this concept, they were more than willing. We didn't have to twist any arms. They said, what do we need to do? So over the last couple of years, we've been doing training. We've been acquiring equipment, working with our fire and EMS department so that we can bring them into scenes that they normally would not go into. Traditionally, we talked about surround, contain, and call SWAT. Traditionally, up until recent years, EMS, fire, medical personnel, they would stage away from the critical incident, and they would wait for law enforcement to basically tell them that the scene was completely secure and safe to go into. And again, that's how things have been done for 30 plus years. I can tell you that Hudson's been working on this for several years. There's now a push even in the county-wide to develop plans just like this for the county, trying to get all the agencies involved in the same type of training and response protocols. And I think it's great. Again, preserving life is the main goal. I want to talk about an incident. I'm able to share this with you. This happened November 1st, 2022, and basically what I'm going to go over is an incident review with you, a timeline, kind of pull the curtain back. Some of the stuff may not be surprising, some of it might be, but this was a coordinated response to a threat at Hudson High School. It's important to note that statistically most threats are hoaxes. A lot of times they're meant to disrupt or cause alarm. However, we still take every threat seriously. We can't afford to just ignore a threat, even though statistically it's unlikely that it's legitimate. So we treat all these threats seriously. I'm going to go over two different timelines. Both timelines run concurrent. So our police department is set up operationally. We have an operations side or patrol division, which is the uniform patrol division, you know, the guys that you normally see out on the road driving the police cars around or responding to a call for service through our dispatch center. And then we have what's called special operations. And special operations is made up of like our detective bureau. It actually includes our SROs, although they're kind of a bridge between the two, but includes the SROs and some other specialty assignments, some of our tech people and stuff like that. So what you're going to see is a timeline that shows you from when the call initiated until we finish this event. You're going to see what both sides of the police department, operations and special operations, we're working on in order to bring a resolve to this incident. And again, this was November 1st, 2022. At 1:15, a phone threat called into the guidance office. Admin and SROs were notified that the threat was received. At 1:22, a police action plan was developed after the patrol division was notified, and we implemented an action plan. At 1:30, Special Operations, Admin, Detective Bureau were briefed by our SROs. Now, during this time, the action plan included deploying or redeploying staff from other areas. We had both SROs on scene at the high school, inside the building. We deployed detectives in unmarked vehicles, as well as uniformed police officers to not only to the high school, but to all the schools, just in case this was a ploy to pull our services away from other schools. At 2:10, this was ID'd as a false threat, and the school was notified. I had a conference call with school admin advising the suspect was identified, and the threat was determined not to be substantive. Hudson High School released the instructional lockdown at 2:20. Now, again, it may seem like I skipped some stuff. I'm going to take you over to the other side and how we got to that point. 1:22, Patrol Division notified, action plan implemented. Special Operations, our Detective Bureau and our tech personnel used the phone number that was used to call on the threat ID'd by Special Operations. They did an emergency request with digital service providers was filed. These are things that police departments can do under exigent circumstances, and so we basically reached out to the providers instantly as soon as we spun up to see what we could get off of the number that was used. They were able to ID the number. During identification, the number in question was used to call on a threat to a Pennsylvania school. We then had contact directly, this was at 1:38, with the detective from Pennsylvania that it was investigating or had investigated the case in PA. The suspect was identified as a 12-year-old in Portage County. At 2:10, the threat was nullified, school was notified, Hudson School Resource Officers were notified, the threat was classified not credible. The IP address used to place the call was tracked to an address in Portage County. This address was consistent with the PA detective's investigation. We were able to gather a lot from their investigation. They shared everything that they had with us in order to help us resolve our situation. Now, to give you some stuff that's not on the slides, this 12-year-old, very tech savvy, was actually working with another juvenile who was 15 years old who lived in Norway. They are responsible for threats to schools all over the place, different countries. Their goal, I talked about hoaxes, their goal was to cause annoyance, alarm, disruption to the schools. That's it. They never had a plan to actually assault a school or do anything like that. This was just something they were doing. We were recently, we did search warrants, again, follow up, our detective bureau followed up on this, spent a lot of time gathering digital evidence. We actually are able to do forensic investigations on phones and stuff. We did a search warrant at a house in Portage County, along with other agencies that came with us, and Hudson PD did the forensic accounts of the devices, computers, and phones, and we were able to put together a case, and we have charges pending right now as of a week ago in Summit County Juvenile Court, and have been in contact with federal police in Norway, reference the other juvenile. Again, kind of able to pull the curtain back a little bit. You're talking about 1:22 or 1:15 to 2:20ish, 3 o'clock, when it's all said and done, and the amount of energy and manpower and effort that went into this was great. We were fortunate. They all don't work out like this as far as being able to identify suspects and put charges on them and hopefully stop what's going on, but we make every effort to do that because I think it's important, because we don't want this stuff to continue, whether it's our school or somebody else's. So we put the time in, and again, we were able to close this case out and file charges. Partnerships, schools. We have open lines of communications. Our SROs are actively involved in early prevention and threat assessments. Cooperative training between HPD and schools, including offering CFA, the critical injury first aid, and active shooter training to school staff. When I look at CFA, I had mentioned this to Dana when we discussed this, and Doreen, to me, stuff like this is a force multiplier. The more people that can provide basic first aid skills or quick life-saving skills, the better off we all are, right? And it doesn't even have to be a mass shooter or a critical incident. It could be a car accident. It just benefits the community as a whole. So we're more than happy to assist with that kind of stuff and build those partnerships. Other agencies, local, state, and federal. Again, communication. We also have mutual aid agreements with the agencies around us, which didn't come into play because we were able, that last incident that I went over, had we been tied up dealing with that, rather than pulling maybe an officer from a location that I wanted them to be at, we may have called one of those other agencies if calls would have come in and asked them to handle an accident or something like that, so we could keep our staff on task until we were able to get it sorted. Sharing of resources and equipment and follow-up investigations. Again, we worked with, on the incident I shared with you, we worked with local agencies. We also worked with federal agencies on that one, as well as an agency in Norway. So we're sharing information, especially on these important investigations. We also have great cooperation between HPD and the Hudson Fire Department and EMS. That was needed to implement the Rescue Task Force. It's a big ask. When those guys sign up to be medics and firemen, they're not thinking they're going where the shots are being fired or there's a problem like that. But again, that partnership is there. Community partnerships and training for community. We've done multiple active shooter training for houses of worship, businesses. We've done them, and also community groups. And just a side note, again, partnership on the other side is that, this equipment that we're providing our officers, the city's very supportive, but we also have community support outside of the city buying us stuff that we need to respond to this stuff. Our IFACs and tourniquets and other safety equipment for the fire department was donated by both Kiwanis and Western Reserve Hospital. So again, it's that partnership that we have that helps us be prepared for these types of incidents. I'm going to finish with a couple things, and basically it's what you can do to help. And I know these might not be easy things because they may go against your desire or first inclinations, but responding to schools, and again, we're talking about like major events here. Your first inclination may be to respond directly to the school. but doing so may hamper efforts by safety forces by preventing them from bringing in resources and or taking them away from their primary responsibilities. And I know that's not probably your thought in the moment. That's why I want to mention it now, and I want to talk about it, because if we have 50 to 100 or 20 to 100 vehicles and parents and people piling in, we may not be able to get the ambulances. We may not be able to get the police officers that are responding from other agencies into where we need them. And again, I know it's stuff we don't like to think about, but it's important. Communications. Please try and rely on communications that come from the schools and police department. I know these communications may not be in real time or as fast as you would like. And again, in that type of event, it's going to be hard to stay calm. It's going to be hard not to do certain things. But the information that we'll provide you is going to be accurate, and it's going to help us deal with the incident that we're dealing with. So again, these are just things that I would ask that if you could try and do these things, it would help us if we were to have something like this happen in Hudson. Oh.
So I just wanted to come up just for a quick second and let everyone know one of the beautiful things about this committee that I've learned this year are the experts who live in our town. And they come to the meetings and they provide so much guidance to us, and they help the school officials. But we also have parents on the committee who just provide a perspective. And one of the parents spoke up so well one night and stated that his own daughter had been in a situation where they were in a lockdown, and as our kids do, maybe they did it on November 1st, they reach out to home and they text. And so the daughter had said to the parent, "What am I supposed to do?" And he gave us all advice that we found important, so important that we wanted to present it to you tonight. And he said, take a deep breath, listen to the adults, trust what you've practiced, and trust the people who are around you. And instead of being in a state of panic, he tried to calm his daughter and put her in a place where she could respond with people appropriately, which is what we've tried to be about tonight. It's just to practice and know and respond and work in case we are ever in this situation. All right. Jennifer. One more? You got it?
Yes, I got it.
Okay.
Thank you. So I just wanted to circle back and share about our crisis response plan. We have a crisis response team that has been trained. We spent a lot of time this year. We had some very dedicated staff who worked on the plan for us and helped train our comprehensive student services group, which was that group I mentioned earlier, as well as then going into the buildings and talking to the staff about what that crisis response plan would look like. We want everyone to feel comfortable that if, unfortunately, we were in a situation where we had a crisis or a tragedy, that there would be a coordinated response. We also have, we've also had some neighboring districts that have unfortunately experienced some different tragedies this year, and some of them have reached out for assistance from other districts, and we have sent staff who were available to go and be a part of their district response. And I appreciate that we've been able to do that, and when they come back, we debrief and talk about what did we learn, what can we do better. Again, just anything we can do to be as prepared as possible. But I just want to reiterate for everyone that the response can be for the group, for the staff, for a group of students, individual students, and then there's always follow-up. Again, the staff has been trained. Key people have been trained with some really important roles. Everyone has materials and are ready to go if we would be in that situation. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Reese, and she's going to share with you some information about communication.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Reese. I'm the manager of communications. Chief Tabek touched on this a little bit, but you'll be receiving, if there is a situation, a text or an email from my office, potentially a phone call, just depending on the severity of what's going on. Typically, that would come from the superintendent. The frequency of communication is really dependent on what the situation is. So, you know, you might hear from me once, and then the next time it might just be that everything's good. But if we're moving kids and there's a reunification and I need to tell you where to go and you need your ID and this is how this process is going to work, you're going to hear from us a little more often. Behind the scenes, so you know, we're working really hard to get all the correct information. I know you're going to hear from your kids if they have a phone and they're a little older. You're going to see things on social media, but my job is really to get you accurate information. So I don't plan to ever put anything out unless I know or I feel it's 100% accurate. So I'm racing to kind of get stuff out there, but at the same time, I'm not trying to race social media because I know that I'll never beat them, whatever that information is that's out there. And also the district isn't always able to share every detail. One of the questions we always get, it happened in November too, if I send out and say the threat was not credible, always parents say, how do you know that? I know it because the police, you know, as the chief went through that timeline, there's so much information to share. We don't share all of that, but we trust that our SROs and Chief Tabak are working diligently to make sure that everything is good. And then probably the most important thing you can do is update your information in HAC, the Home Access Center. That pushes into my mass notification system. So if you have a change in email, a change in phone number, or if you have questions about it, you can always call our office. But that's how we get the information nightly. It pushes over into my system. So if you make a change today, tonight it would push over, and then we would be in good shape for tomorrow. So that's the basic of what you need to know. Again, it just really depends on the situation, but always if your information is up to date, we'll be able to get in touch with you. And I think I'm turning it over to Doreen.
Before we have a last thought and summary, I just want to say thank you to our presenters. I know it is a little bit nerve-wracking to prepare, not to prepare, but to present. And so I just want to thank you because you spoke from the heart and from your lens of expertise. And I just want to say thank you so much. Dana mentioned our Parent and Staff Safety Advisory Committee. It actually started in 2019. Where's my phone? 18, in response really to the Parkland shootings, and that's when we knew we needed help, and we put a cry out for help from our parents and our staff members, and people took up that call and applied, so we are so fortunate to have parents on our staff, parent and staff committee that are experts in the medical field, IT field, security, really a myriad of organizations that they bring, and they bring something different. And then we have incredible staff consisting of our support staff and our teachers and administrators that are on this committee, and we do meet at least quarterly. It seems a little bit more this year because we're starting back up after COVID from last spring. So if you are on that committee, could you please stand up and be recognized? I know, I'm gonna make you do it. Stand up back there. We have kept fires represented, our SROs. We're just very fortunate. We have 2 board members as representatives, Mr. James Field and Mrs. Elisa Wright. It is a collaborative group, and we learn. There are 4 subcommittees, so I just wanted to say thank you. This is totally volunteer. There's no paycheck, really. The goal and the common goal is to give back and to make sure our students and our staff are safe and healthy and well. So I just have to say a special thank you. So tonight you learned about, we do have a plan. So no matter what happens and no matter what, we do have a plan, and we try to make our plan nimble and flexible, because no situation, we don't have a recipe. It's not a cookie cutter type thing. Our processes are, so like Jamie talked about the bullying reporting, that process is the same, but how we talk to students, how we investigate it, there's nuances there, and the focus has to be on the student.
must be on the student. We have a system of supports. We have been adding more supports so that every day that our students have access to quality and extremely professional school counselors, our clinical counselors, our behavior supports, our school psychologists, but our teachers and staff are there every day too, that front line, because we all have this responsibility to take care of our students. Our safety drills, it goes way beyond the traditional fire drill when we were in school, and tornado drill to do the turtleback. What do you call it, John? Turtleback. You know, you hunch down, put your head under and all that kind of stuff. We have a coordinated response. With fire and EMS, we also meet quarterly. All the schools in Hudson, in the city of Hudson, so WRA, Montessori, Seton, we meet quarterly to make sure that we're sharing resources and talking to one another, because if something would happen, it is a community response. I have to say I'm so grateful for our SROs. They are amazing, and no, Chief Tabak, they did not pay me to say that. And we also appreciate really the whole Hudson PD department, and under your leadership, Chief Tabak, seriously, we just want to say thank you. There's a lot of trust, and we appreciate that, and we know the value of that. We are very fortunate. Communication and those communication resources, we will do the best we can, as Jennifer said, and as Chief Tabak said, and Jamie, and hopefully that was infused within the presentation tonight, that communication, and we will do what we can. We will never beat our students. There's no way. We can't even try. But what comes out of Jennifer's office is accurate. We can say that. So please, please, please be patient with us, because we don't want to give you information that is incorrect, because as a parent, that would freak me out. And then again, our Parent and Staff Safety Advisory Committee, there are recommendations that have been made to the superintendent over the years, the vestibules, the Raptor system, different things that we've tried. We didn't get into every security detail because they're secret. And there's things that we won't share publicly that is really important to us too. So if you have specific questions, let us know. Also, on your seats, we have a QR code to give us feedback for tonight, because we value your opinion and your feedback. If you have questions, we will create and gather those questions to create an FAQ. We use tonight's format. Mental health, mental wellness of our students was the #1 priority in that survey that we did back in January. And then the response to bullying was up there, the coordinated response with our police, and what does a lockdown look like for our students? Those were the priorities, and that's what we focused this presentation on, and we had about 360-ish respondents, which was pretty good. And then the safety committee, our Parent and Staff Safety Advisory Committee, we went through those results and then planned the format too. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity tonight, and I just want to say thank you so much, and please, please fill out your QR code, and I hope you have a wonderful evening, and hopefully we'll be maybe in shorts tomorrow. Well, I won't be in shorts, but maybe not a winter coat. How's that? So thank you very much, and have an awesome evening.